The kid would probably have to near death several times before gradually learning these experiences. I taught you the left-handed dagger technique because most people use their right hand, and many warriors are accustomed to frontal right-handed attacks. Attacking from the left, towards the opponent's weapon hand, will catch most warriors off guard, giving you an opportunity. What if my opponent is as ambidextrous as you, Brother Peng, or even able to wield weapons in both hands? Jiang Yusen practiced for a while, pondered for a moment, then suddenly asked, Chapter 0 on the Night Watch trial. Then you can only rely on your agility, turn, and run. If you can't run, you're dead. The moment we pick up a weapon to kill, we must understand that we are prepared to kill, and we must also allow ourselves to be killed. There's no such thing as only you killing others, and no one else killing you. Stop, your wristwork and footwork lack agility. You can only practice what I just taught you, don't try it on anyone yet. It's easy to get killed trying that. Let me teach you a simpler move. A shoulder charge, a classic technique in firearms combat. Master this, and it could save your life. As night fell, the 5 of them built a fire in the temple. Zhu Peng personally taught Jiang Yusen 2 killing techniques. Once mastered, these would temporarily increase his combat effectiveness 3 to 5 times. Since ancient times, the most difficult aspect of martial arts training has been developing true skill. In the language of the witchcraft era, this means increasing attributes like constitution, strength, and agility. Therefore, cultivation methods are often the core, closely guarded secrets of various schools. Stealing even one move would lead to the school sending out masters to hunt you down to the death. In contrast, techniques can be learned relatively quickly if the basic attributes are sufficient. The 2 techniques Zhu Peng taught Jiang Yusen were refined and effective, but they weren't particularly profound. Even with the same knife stroke, the actual effect differs vastly when performed by a master versus a novice. Lu Yido circled a broken stone pillar, practicing his swordsmanship while muttering incantations under his breath. Cole sat by the fire, reading a book. He was a wizard apprentice from another plane, with shallow understanding of his world's foundation. Though his spiritual power and magical accumulation were profound, and he knew many spells, he lacked basic knowledge common to the wizarding world, such as the 3 great inventions of the Supreme Emperor that impacted the entire wizarding world: the core defensive field system, the Eternal Witch Network system, and the extra-dimensional spatial positioning anchor. These 3 great inventions that changed the wizarding world strengthened its civilization at the combat, tactical, and strategic levels respectively. This was common knowledge, even to ordinary citizens in the wizarding world, but Cole knew little about them. He still needed material components for spellcasting, otherwise, he couldn't even cast a spell. This primitive and clumsy method of spellcasting had been gradually abandoned in the wizarding world tens of thousands of years ago. Although he was old and had only a few years left to live if he didn't break through to the formal wizard rank, Cole still stared at his somewhat blurry old eyes, immersed in the sea of books, learning new things until his death. In his opinion, this was far more blessed and peaceful than lying idly in bed and dying of illness. Dong Kao, don't you need to catch up on sleep? You're on watch duty tonight. Zhu Peng is a man of his word. Don't let his easygoing manner deceive you. If you really fall asleep, he will kill you in front of everyone. It's all right, sister. I've been sleeping non-stop in that place for days, and I have a headache from it. I'll chat with you and play with Nukshu for a while. It's a good way to get to know the team better. Holding Nukshu's chubby, round body in her arms, Dong smiled at you, her eyes filled with a somewhat bewildered look as she watched the 2 men practicing their combat skills in the distance. Hours later, everyone was fast asleep, leaving Dongshu alone tending the bonfire. She occasionally stood up to look around, showing a great sense of responsibility. In the darkness, in a corner of the black stone temple, a pile of trash was being slowly pushed aside. Several children with green glowing eyes and knives and axes slowly crawled out from the pile. They were young, but their bodies were already covered in clear scales. Once fully grown, these abyssal worshippers, with the dual protection of armor and innate scales, would be natural masters of close combat, clad in heavy armor, undoubtedly far stronger than their parents. Woo, they're all asleep! Let's go cut off their heads to avenge our people! Ah, we're out of meat! Kill them all, and we'll have meat to survive! By the warm fire, Dongshu felt drowsy and could barely keep her eyes open. She'd been told she slept all day while being held captive, but the truth was, the constant fear of being slaughtered kept her in a state of perpetual anxiety. Sleep, even when it came, was restless and shallow. Now, safe at last, the warmth of the fire was proving too much for her. No, if I fall asleep they'll kill me, and Jiang Yusen will be implicated too. She pinched her inner thigh hard, jolting herself awake, but in that instant, she saw a figure, short, silhouetted against the firelight, raising an axe to strike her. Ah, who? Puffed as Dongshu screamed, a spear flew through the air, piercing the small savage behind her, pinning its tiny body to the stone wall. Not bad, managing a scream before you died. Barely passing, Jupin had been nestled in his sleeping bag, stood before Dongshu, clad in full battle gear. He was unarmed, his single spear having been flung to save Dongshu. Now, the discovered savages, armed and howling, charged him from all sides. Before they could reach him, however, a blur of motion, a flash of bright steel, sliced a 360-degree arc around Zhu Peng, instantly slaughtering the savages. I knew it. A tribe with no elders and not even a single child. Killing you all, at least now I can sleep soundly. Willow One Cut wiped his blade clean, stroking his beard with a cruel grin. The others awoke. Zheng Yusen's face was pale, as the scout. His failure to detect the enemy encampment was undeniable. At this hour, Uncle Lu Yuwen. Master Cole, you get some more sleep. Yusen and I will investigate where these brats were hiding. Dongshu continue watch. Lu Yidao was older, and Cole and Wen lacked the same willpower, meaning insufficient sleep would severely impact their fighting capabilities. Peng checked his phone, thought for a moment, and then tossed an amber-like stone to Dongshu. Your reward for passing the test. Figure out how to use it. Chapter Azanfifi the Haines Shroud. After Cole burned the rubbish pile in the temple corner to ashes, a long, dark fissure in the black stone revealed itself to the five. Peng entered first, followed by the others. The entrance was narrow, but the passage opened up into a surprisingly spacious cavern. Lu Yidao's internal energy had permeated his head and face, making his five senses far keener than those of ordinary martial artists. After listening intently for a moment, the old swordsman whispered, I hear water. There must be an underground river here. The abyssal soil erosion must have twisted the entire frozen mountain, its internal force shattering the walls of the black stone temple and creating this passage. Where it leads, we don't know. To an underground tomb. Let's finish the abyssal devotee quest before exploring the tomb. That way, the difficulty of the quest chain will be halved at least. Peng said nothing, leading his team forward until they reached a chamber breached by rock. In an instant, everyone except Peng and Dongshu's eyes lit up. This is an underground tomb. The kinetic energy of the abyssal soil shifting compressed the mountain, connecting the black stone temple atop the frozen mountain with the underground tomb in its belly. Old Cole's eyes burned with excitement, though this was more the excitement of a wizard whose deductions had been proven true. Peng pressed a hand on Cole's shoulder, halting the aged wizard apprentice. If this path were easy, those abyssal demon spawn wouldn't have risked ambushing us. The underground tomb has a far higher quest rating than abyssal devotee. Who knows what lurks within? Dongsh, go back and place a watcher at the main entrance of the Blackstone Temple. Keep watch and wait for our return. Improvise if anything unexpected happens. Dongshu wasn't a fighter. Exploring the underground tomb wouldn't be feasible with her. After Dongshu left, Peng took the lead, with Liu Yido guarding the rear. These two possessed the best adaptability, survival skills, and overall strength. Cole was strong, but he was old, even if there were traps or mechanisms within the ancient tomb. Whether they could even hit Peng and Liu Yido was one question, whether they could kill them was another. The tomb was spacious and exquisitely designed. The side walls were even adorned with rough stone carvings. Surprisingly, as the five explored deeper, they triggered some mechanism, and the oil lamps lining the walls suddenly ignited. The tomb's owner even designed lighting for tomb raiders. How thoughtful, Peng thought wryly, extinguishing his torch. The sight made him uneasy. He stopped, and the other four immediately halted. 2. Many civilizations that mastered first and second order necromantic magic viewed death as a stage of life, with peculiar customs. You Chinese view death as rebirth in the underworld, thus burying the deceased with their beloved treasures and, in extreme cases, demanding human sacrifices. But not all civilizations share this view. As he spoke, Old Cole approached a corner of the tomb where the stone wall had been breached by rocks. Several crudely made ceramic jars lay scattered on the ground, some broken, revealing rolls of dark yellow coarse cloth within. After donning leather gloves, Old Cole picked up a roll of the cloth and slowly unfurled it. After a moment's examination, the old wizard showed the scattered patterns on the cloth to Peng. Though blurry and abstract, Peng saw scenes of war, sacrifice, celebration and death, with death dominating the majority of the patterns. You've studied appraisal. You should know something about the history of the myriad civilizations. What era is this artifact from? Judging by the style of the patterns, it's a product of the Haines civilization. If I remember correctly, this second-tier civilization was known for its ferocious battle fervor and bizarre religious customs. Most Haines elders died in gladiatorial combat against beasts. They worshipped battle, death and glory, despising those who died peacefully in their beds. It was a weak civilization. While there are still some Haines mixed bloods in the wizarding world, their cultural heritage should have long since been lost. You remember the details of a second-tier civilization so well. That shows your solid foundation, Peng. Many wizard apprentices only remember 5th tier and above extra-dimensional civilizations, and then they die in the ruins of civilizations they disdain to understand, Old Cole said with a sneer. Any civilization that leaves its mark on the married worlds once shone with brilliant and glorious splendor. After this somewhat peculiar conversation, Peng and Old Cole seemed to relax. If this is a Brino civilization relic, the lights illuminating means you've been discovered. Get out of here. If you continue to press on, as long as the entire tomb's mechanisms are still functioning, you'll find a large collapse. We're inside a mountain, after all, Cole said, putting the roll of cloth into his bag. But since it's the battle, death, and glory worshipping Haines, there's no need to worry. They viewed life as a glorious battle, and death as a continuation of that battle. The lights illuminating means the entire tomb's defense mechanisms have been activated. Charge forward like a warrior, overcoming obstacles. The tomb's owner should be a Haines noble. They'll have prepared rich treasures in the burial chamber for a warrior, provided you aren't killed by it. The Han civilization was known for its berserker warriors and necromancy. Their tomes commonly contained a large number of shrouds, which they considered currency in the underworld. Cole and Zhu Peng's explanation restored the composure of Lu Yidao, whose face had been pale at the news of the tomb's collapse. He glanced at the silver-haired elf, whose expression was a mixture of illiteracy and awe, and said with a sigh, "Such a shame. Didn't you and Peng study appraisal techniques under the same tutor? Why did your face go so pale just now?" She certainly wouldn't recognize them. During that time when she was studying appraisal techniques, this girl was completely immersed in palace intrigue dramas. As for the history of myriad civilizations, "Alright, let's hurry inside. The host has already prepared." Arriving late would disappoint them. Interrupting the impending verbal sparring, Zhu Peng turned his head to the young thief saying, "You Sen, collect a few bundles of shrouds." Hane's shrouds are known for their excellent quality among wizard apprentices and even low-level wizards. Many apprentices studying necromancy will buy several rolls to keep even if they don't use them. The Hanes nobles, they would have themselves and their confidence made into mummy-like corpses to welcome the arrival of challengers inside the tomb. There were many tiered stone beds, and numerous somewhat shrunken but remarkably complete skeletons lay upon them. After Zhu Peng and the 4 others passed by without noticing, these deceased, who had undergone a special secret ritual, abruptly opened their hollow eyes, emitting a dark green glow. They swayed, climbed down from their stone beds, and finally surrounded the 5 in groups of 3 or 5. See, what did I say? The Hanes civilization is famous for its battle frenzy and necromancy. Watching the undead warriors, who quickly regained their former agility and wielded rusty weapons, Old Cole spread his hands, excitedly addressing the group. No matter how much you read, you won't fully understand everything. Even if you understand everything, in the end, it all comes down to a fight anyway. Meanwhile, Guoshu was watching the amber-like eye stone beside the bonfire. As Zhu Peng requested, she had concentrated her spirit in front of the black stone temple and planted a nether eye. Unless someone constantly casts detection spells or is incredibly sensitive to being observed, this nether eye, hidden in the void, would generally go unnoticed. Just as Guoshu was staring at the eye stone, nibbling on a slightly salty compressed biscuit, feeling a little bored, 7 people entered the nether eye's observation range. The important thing was, they were clearly heading towards the black stone temple. The biscuit in her small mouth dropped slightly. No way, what I feared most has happened. Guoshu quickly stood up and looked around. She glanced again at the image shown in the eye stone, realizing that packing up and escaping was certainly too late. Finally, the girl stamped her foot, ignoring her belongings, ran to a side wall, tore off a piece of animal hide, and hid herself in the crevice leading to the underground tomb. As she squeezed in, she used the animal hide to conceal the crevice, managing to sense a challenge beyond expectations. Within the crevices of the stone passage leading from the Blackstone Temple to the underground crypt, Guoshu concentrated her spiritual energy, reconstituting a nether eye at the entrance. Gritting her teeth, she plunged into the darkness below. Whether those who had come from outside were friend or foe remained unknown, but Guoshu had scavenged with teams before. In this lawless modern age, bloody conflicts were not uncommon when one scavenging team envied the spoils of another. Professionals were higher level than scavengers, but that didn't mean their morals were any higher. As Guoshu charged into the crypt, Zhu Peng's muscled. Leaping from above, he plunged 2 spears into the back of a house-sized spider but missed the vital point. Instantly, he was flung away by a massive purple spider, its body radiating a faint blue glacial flame. A mutated green sludge had transformed into a similarly enormous spider to draw fire, but this mere paper tiger was quickly shredded to pieces by the ice flame spider whose terrifyingly high stats and ferocious nature overwhelmed it. The spacious stone hall was densely covered in pale white webs. The ice flame spider had woven a massive nest at the top of the hall. Thick, chain-like strands of webbing extended from its rear, allowing the house-sized arachnid to rapidly launch itself into the air before plunging down on its prey. Its heavy, near-ton weight combined with its agile and cunning hunting techniques transformed this raging beast into a killing machine. Its 8 legs pounded the ground as the ice flame spider, resembling a heavily armored tank, charged towards a robed wizard who held a thick ice shield in his left hand and spewed searing flames from his right. At the moment the giant spider attacked, Cole decisively abandoned his fire spell, holding his ice shield with both hands and frantically increasing his magical output. The already thick shield expanded and thickened rapidly under the unrestrained magical power, transforming from a single-handed triangular shield into a nearly cylindrical tower shield. Old Cole braced himself behind it, however it was useless. Instinct honed by countless hunts and a savage killing intent manifested as 3 ferocious attacks in an instant. The sharp, hard yellowish-white fangs tore away large chunks of ice each time. Cole, sheltered behind his shield, barely endured the first and second attacks, but when the third strike came, the ice shield shattered. Cole watched in horror as the gaping maw expanded before him, about to tear off his head. Is this the end of my path as a wizard? Just as Old Cole could almost smell the ice flame spider's fated breath, Zhu Peng suddenly appeared before him. He shoved the round, cold iron shield in his left hand into the wide, open jaws of the spider. Then, with a sideways body slam, he forced the creature back. Zhu Peng's shield in his left hand and axe in his right, fought back furiously, his eyes bloodshot, his hair standing on end, a truly enraged man.
Liu Yidao Yuan!
Zhu Peng's low shout echoed from afar. Liu Yidao and Yuan instantly knew that Zhu Peng and Cole were struggling. Lu Shu, go help Zhu Peng and the others. Jiang Yusin and I will hold them off here. He fired his shotgun repeatedly into the cracks in the stone wall where the purple spiders were thickest, blasting swaths of them to pieces. At the same time, Liu Yidao yanked the ice blue young thief from the spider horde with one hand. With each swing of his blade, the spiders were cleaved in two. Those that landed on him were flung off as if by an invisible fist, clattering to the ground dead. However, some gaps in his defenses, places where his internal energy wasn't perfectly honed. Fire purple spiders, leaving wounds showing both frostbite and burns. That kid, he can help you now. Ignoring the pain and wounds, Liu Yidao kicked Jiang Yusin, whose body was almost frozen solid from countless spider bite, sending him flying. A brilliant green light spread through Jiang Yusin as he flew, forcibly melting the ice on his body. Liu Yidao's healing spell, granted by their team contract, activated. When Jiang Yusin crashed into the wall, he coughed up a large mouthful of steaming, burnt blood. The potent life force of the spell melted the frostbite while simultaneously forcing out his inner fiery toxins. Help Yen ease the pressure. Be careful, if these spiders overwhelm you again. I don't have a second healing spell. With that, Liu Yidao ran towards Zhu Peng and Cole. The grizzled, grey-haired veteran looked incredibly valiant and fearless on the battlefield. Barely had Liu Yidao left when Jiang Yusin spat out another mouthful of foul-tasting pulp. He'd accidentally swallowed a spider and chewed it to bits. Watching Yun fend off the seemingly endless tide of spiders, a deep fear flashed in Jiang Yusin's eyes. He trembled, stood up, then turned and ran into the shadows. I am not running away. I'm a thief. Shooting from the shadows is my job. I'm not running. I really am not. Stealing the fortune of others. You must also bear the backlash of the tides of fate. The enormous purplish ice fire spider, the size of a small house, used the same 3 part-pounds attack that had just defeated the old witch doctor. But the young, incredibly strong Zhu Peng was no frail old Cole. This violent, powerful man stood for, delivering a ferocious axe blow each time the spider lunged, blood spraying everywhere, his shield slamming into the creature with equal ferocity. They usually describe a strong man as having fists the size of pots, but when Zhu Peng wielded his shield and punched, he was like a legendary strongman unleashing a television-sized iron fist in a furious assault. The ice and fire spider was already in excruciating pain from the slashing attack during the pounce, and the next moment it felt like it had been hit by a speeding train. The impact slammed into its face. Zhu Peng countered 3 times in an instant, reversing the offensive and defensive positions. The huge, purplish-black spider the size of a small house was forced back several steps in a head-on confrontation by the shield-wielding soldier whose size was less than its head. However, it retreated 2 steps, and without warning, it sprayed a large blob of white-green liquid, engulfing Zhu Peng. The white-green liquid solidified rapidly upon contact with the air, becoming extremely viscous. Zhu Peng stood still, shield in hand, but the ice and fire spider didn't counterattack. Instead, the enormous spider shook its rear and quickly ascended along its tough spider silk. Seeing this, Zhu Peng's face changed. He abruptly turned and shouted to Cole, who had just recovered his breath behind him. Run! Cole froze. The next moment, he looked up and saw the ice and fire spider leaping high into the air. The old man's face turned as white as a ghost in an instant. He turned and ran desperately towards the distance, but the shadow on the ground grew larger and clearer. The moment Cole stumbled and fell, the ice and fire spider pounced on the old wizard. Its fangs, somewhat chipped by Zhu Peng's blows, sank into the old wizard's neck as he tried to cast a self-saving spell. The venom of ice and fire rapidly plundered what little life force Cole had left. Visible to the naked eye, Cole trembled and with his right hand, snapped his fingers, producing a sound that wasn't quite crisp. A green glow emanated from his body, then quickly faded. But this brief delay allowed Zhu Peng to break free from the sticky spider fluid. He ran towards them, pressing his left hand towards Cole. Healing spell. 2 healing spells finally allowed Cole to hold on until Liu Yidao, as shadowy as death itself, arrived. He flashed past one side of the ice and fire spider, severing 3 legs. The next moment, the grey-haired swordsman leaped onto the spider's back with a mighty chop. Liu Yidao's attack and explosive power were even greater than Zhu Peng's. Zhu Peng was only a step behind, arriving at the front of the ice and fire spider, the very place where its offensive was at its strongest and most concentrated. But old Cole was still lying there, and Zhu Peng couldn't just stand by and watch him being bitten to death. 2 legs, encased in insect armor, thrust forward like ferocious spears. A cruel glint flashed in Zhu Peng's eyes. He planted his feet and astonishingly, with a sideways movement, he used his arms and body to clamp down on the spider's 2 spear-like legs. Bursting with all his strength, Zhu Peng performed a coin jinjua weight-dropping technique, lowering his center of gravity. His body rose and fell like waves, using his Ting Jinhua Jin listening to force, transforming force skills honed from years of practicing Tai Chuan. Zhu Peng managed to momentarily immobilize the ice and fire spider. He listened to the force, transformed the force, rendering it immobile. Chapter Ludrudran's Evan character, skill. In the late Qing and early Republic eras, Yang Luchan, a grandmaster of Tai Chi, possessed the incredible skill of capturing birds with a single hand, rendering them unable to fly. This seemingly mystical skill is actually quite simple. Birds, when flying, use a two-legged launching motion, otherwise they cannot take off. Yang Luchan's Tai Chi cultivation was so refined that he could clearly perceive the moment a small bird exerted force in his hand. The instant the bird exerted force, Yang Luchan would gently guide his palm downward, dissipating the bird's upward momentum. His control was so precise that the bird was unharmed. Zhu Peng at this moment was employing a similar technique of sensing and neutralizing force. Although the isoflame purple spider exuded potent venom, it couldn't kill Zhu Peng instantly. Its exertion of force was far clearer than that of a bird. For a short time, sparing no effort, managed to temporarily restrain it. "Lu Shu, kill it with everything you've got!" The shout was unnecessary. Seeing Zhu Peng's all-out effort, Lu Yidao repeatedly unleashed bursts of hidden energy, tearing huge chunks of flesh from the giant spider. As the killing spree intensified, Lu Yidao plunged his blade into the isoflame spider, then violently ripped off his already damaged armor. The aged swordsman then drew his long blade, wielding it with both hands in a reverse grip as he stood atop the iceflame spider, wildly stabbing downwards. The surging hidden energy, usually deployed sparingly, was now recklessly unleashed, disregarding the strain on his body. In this age of wizards, even a sliver of life could be saved. Zhu Peng, meanwhile, was fending off the iceflame spider's desperate struggles and attacks, using every inch of his body, fists, elbows, knees, arms, legs, and feet, sustaining countless wounds in a short span. If it weren't for his incredibly solid pure yang external cultivation, an ordinary Ming and level martial artist would have been torn to shreds 8 times over by now. Yuan burst forth from the other side wielding a shotgun. Behind her followed the plump meatball-like Nuxu. Still a young dragon, it was just barely capable of fighting smaller purple spiders. It punched, kicked, swept its tail, and bit. Its latent aura causing the instinctual smaller spiders to instinctively recoil, giving Yuan the time to reload her gun. Otherwise, facing such a tide of spiders, she would have been overwhelmed. "Zhang Yusen, you goddamn coward. How long are you going to hide? Get out here and drag Cole away!" Li Yidao, standing atop the giant spider, his perception of the entire battlefield crystal clear, roared, his thunderous shout revealing the young thief's hiding place. Zhang Yusen, who had been hiding in the shadows, leaning against the stone wall clutching his superior steel crossbow, but had not yet loosed a single bolt, heard the roar filled with rage. Terror and fear etched his face, an expression bordering on tears. However, after a moment's hesitation, he gritted his teeth and charged out of the shadows, grabbing the near-lifeless Cole and dragging him towards the darkness. Just as Zhang Yusen was about to pull Cole to a relatively safe spot, old Cole slowly opened his eyes. He saw the gigantic spider flinging Zhu Peng, whose left leg was pierced by a foot gun, away before leaping into the air. Lu Yidao was still on its back, hurtling into the spider's lair, a certain and inescapable death. Yuan, having finished clearing the purple spider swarm, ran over. However, no matter how she fired, as the distance increased the shotgun's lethality rapidly decreased. Zhu Peng, covered in blood and seemingly more injured than her, scrambled to the side before violently hurling a rapidly spinning throwing axe high into the air, aiming directly at the thick spider silk connecting the giant purple spider's ample posterior. Now, Cole, drawing upon an unknown reserve of strength, from his pocket, he produced a scroll. At the moment of its tearing, intense flames instantly enveloped the axe Zhu Peng had thrown. As if in slow motion, the rapidly spinning axe arsed through the air, its trajectory corrected by, before cleaving the tough spider silk, the combined force of the axe's momentum and the flame enchantment severed the nearly steel cable like white silk in an instant. This strike was a stroke of incredible luck. Without the lucky critical hit bonus provided by his spiked gloves, Zhu Peng's axe, even if it hit the silk, would have been a very different outcome hitting with the haft versus the blade. Without old Cole's flame enchantment, which had a certain counter effect against the spider silk, the axe's force alone might not have severed the cable so cleanly. However, on the battlefield only results matter. The ton-weight giant purple spider plummeted from the air, landing with a dull thud. Falling with it was Lu Yidao, shirtless, his muscles tense. With a roar, he plunged his twin-wielded long blades into the spider's body using the momentum of the fall. His masterful swordsmanship allowed him to transfer much of the impact of the fall into his blades, the sharp edges deeply embedding themselves within the spider. His grey hair stood on end, and in that moment, Lu Yidao possessed a godlike presence, causing his companions to momentarily glimpse a legendary warrior slaying a dragon. With a deafening bang, a vast and magnificent shower of light particles erupted from the giant spider's body. Some materialized mid-air as gold, silver and copper, scattering across the ground. Others solidified into several pieces of weaponry. The remainder coalesced around the 5 individuals, forming a deep-sea vortex-like convergence. An unimaginable amount of demonic essence, far exceeding that usually absorbed by a second-tier professional, flooded Zhu Peng's body. He felt as if every muscle was immersed in warm water. The intense relief after extreme fatigue so pleasurable he almost groaned. It was an evolutionary experience. His near-limitless physical capabilities recovered at an astonishing rate. Even the bloody wound on his left leg healed visibly, though a faint ache remained. Superficially, however, it looked as if he had merely torn a hole in his trousers. His flesh was undamaged. He pushed himself to his feet. A dull ache throbbed in his left leg, but as long as he avoided strenuous movement, the healing wound would burst, closing his. Zhu Peng calmed his mind and checked his attribute points. Name: Zhu Peng, species human, male, warrior, rank moth tier, level 255, free attribute points, warrior class, swordsman, shield bearer, wizard. Despite the unexpected setbacks, had achieved his goal, killing higher level monsters, pushing his limits in battle, and accepting professional tasks to avoid the essence being intercepted by the witch net. Only this way could he achieve maximum growth. This icefire giant spider, however, was entirely unforeseen. Mulling this over, Zhu Peng added his newly acquired 5 attribute points to his mental fortitude. He was only 1 or 2 levels away from reaching 30 points and advancing to 3rd grade apprentice, allowing him to convert mental power into magic. For someone with his mud-born mental aptitude, achieving this level through regular meditation would have taken years. As Zhu Peng, feeling his war-weary mind recovering after bolstering his mental fortitude, heard someone fall to the ground, he instantly opened his eyes. Lido, shirtless and his grey-white hair a tangled mess, was violently beating Zhang Yuzhen. Cole leaned against the stone wall, coldly watching the spectacle. Yuan, clutching her shotgun, seemed to want to intercede but didn't know what to say.
Uncle Liu, enough!
We're on the same team.
Same team, my ass, Zhu Peng.
What kind of teammates did you pick? We were fighting our asses off, and he was hiding. I considered him a brother. But he betrayed me. The rules of the underworld are 3 cuts, 6 holes, you fucking understand. The last words were a roar from Liu Yidao, who was yanking Zhang Yuzhen by the collar. The bulging veins on the old man's forehead showed just how furious he was. If he hadn't retained a sliver of reason, he would have torn Zhang Yuzhen apart right then and there, giving a live demonstration of his dismemberment skills. Uncle Liu, I've said enough, Zhu Peng interjected, pushing Liu Yidao's hand away from the boy's collar. A few months ago, he was a scavenger who ran from danger. 2 years before that, he was a college student who wouldn't even kill a chicken. He's already pushed himself to the limit, keeping up with us for the past half-month. Who the hell is born knowing how to wield a blade and kill people? Zhang Yuzhen, his face swollen, was silently weeping. He hadn't cried when he was terrified, hadn't cried when Liu Yido had beaten him, but now, the tears flowed uncontrollably. Then why? Knowing he's not up to it, did you bring him along? We're out here risking our lives, fighting for survival. Liu Yido, can you find me a thief who's familiar with the first domain but isn't tangled up with those messy factions? We need a thief. And most thieves start by stealing small things, then graduate to stabbing people in the back. Do you trust Zhang Yuzhen more than some random person who might stab us in the back at any moment? He can learn, we can teach him, but if his heart is rotten, the first person he'll betray is you. Fuck, I huff, huff, huff. Liu Yidao rubbed his hair, spinning place. He wanted to refute Zhu Peng, but after pacing around again, he remained silent, just as Zhu Peng had said. Lack of skill could be remedied with training, but a flawed character was the most terrifying thing in an adventurer's team. Chapters early fight to the death. You or me? Liu Yidao understood Zhu Peng, but his pride and the boiling blood in his veins prevented him from backing down. At that moment, Zhang Yuzhen wiped his face and spoke. Uncle Liu, you didn't do anything wrong. It was me. I chickened out at a critical moment. Before he could finish, a jarringly beautiful female voice cut through the air, completely disrupting the mood. Cheng Hong Chang Dong Lai phone, long standby time. You guys continue. I'll take this call. Zhu Peng pulled a phone from a shockproof case at his waist, glancing at his teammates with a strange expression. The ringtone, I've never changed it since I bought the phone, it's still the factory setting. Having said that, Zhu Peng ignored the gazes of those present, turned his back, and pressed the answer button. What? Several people. Where are they now? Good, stay where you are. I'll be right there. Zhu Peng, whose expression had been somewhat relaxed, gradually grew grimmer as he listened to the other end of the phone. Zhu Peng ran towards the location Dongsh had mentioned, his phone still open. The further away from Abyss City they got, the weaker the phone signal became. Apart from a few extremely powerful forces whose websites were connected to the WitchNet system, radiating across the Held, etc., ordinary phone signals, within the 5 dark realms, required extremely close proximity or incredibly lucky timing to connect. Dongshu, the unlucky girl who almost got cooked, clearly didn't have that lucky timing. She had only managed to connect after repeatedly dialing, and only after she'd already run to a position not far from here. You guys, recover your injuries and collect your equipment, don't worry about the money. 7 professionals could attack at any time. Hearing Zhu Peng's parting words, the relaxed mood of everyone present tightened. Encountering professionals wouldn't usually be a problem. With the wild ox around, even a tiger would bother a wolf. However, the current situation was different. The tiger had brought down the wild ox but had unfortunately been injured, and now a wolf, an uninvited guest, had arrived. It said it came to pay New Year's calls, but who would believe that? Zhu Peng quickly found Dongshu not far from the stone hall. The girl had triggered a trap that Zhu Peng and the others hadn't cleared, and was now pierced in the shoulder by an arrow, looking weak and lifeless against a stone bed. Zhu Peng quickly checked her injuries. Thankfully, at least for now, they weren't fatal. This is an image from the eye stone. I've already taken a picture with my phone, just now. They cut through the animal skin I used to cover the crack in the rock, and they could burst in here at any moment. Dongshu showed unexpected resilience. She gritted her teeth, hugged her arm, and immediately handed the phone to Zhu Peng. Let's go back and regroup. The situation might not be as bad as you think. Zhu Peng scooped her up in a princess carry and quickly took Dongshu back to the stone hall. By this time, Jiang Yuzhen and Yuan had collected the equipment dropped by the giant purple spider, while Lu Yido slowly practiced his punches, circulating his blood and calming his mind. Old Cole meditated against the stone wall, several empty glass tubes beside him. Life in the Jiangwu, one has no choice. In the images Dongshu had taken, at least half of the 7 were Earth survivors, 4 men and 3 women, most of them of East Asian descent. However, this wasn't good news. The man leading the group, wearing a thick snow robe, had a cold, serious expression and 2 katanas strapped to his waist. This team includes 2 petite girls, each concealing a short blade, though their cunning was no match for Zhu Peng and Lu Yido's sharp eyes. The remaining 4 consist of a powerfully built woman laden with 3 firearms, ammunition, and grenades, a sturdy, dark yellow-skinned middle-aged man with a firm gait, a Nord-style axe-wielding berserker, and a cold-faced young man of yellow complexion wielding a long polearm. This was a predominantly Japanese adventurer team. What bad luck, Zhu Peng muttered, massaging his temples in a headache. Skilled Japanese swordsmen. 2 girls concealing their blades with ninja techniques. Almost certainly ninjas. That dark yellow-skinned man moves like a crab, his style suggesting Muay Thai and Baguazhang. The Nord is clearly a berserker, and that woman, either a ranger or a gunner. The young man with the halberd is likely another Japanese warrior. In short, they're tough opponents. We need to take out the woman with the guns first. Lu Yidao traced the length of his katana, his brow furrowed as he quickly analyzed the 7 individuals in the video. We can't fight. This isn't about winning or losing, it's about survival. In our current state, if we clash with these 7 professionals, even if we win, half of us will be dead. We absolutely cannot engage. Old Cole, his magic and spirit somewhat restored, spoke. Though even after using potent restorative potions, he wasn't fully recovered. The problem is, the decision isn't ours. If they come demanding a share of our profits, do we give in? If halving our earnings will appease them, fine. Money isn't as important as life. But if we show weakness, they'll want more than half. That's exactly what will happen. This is a distinctly Japanese adventurer team. Chinese and Japanese people harbor mutual animosity. Surveys showed that 90% of Japanese people held clear anti-Chinese sentiments. In the 21st century, both countries had to exercise restraint. But in the sorcerer world, clashes between Chinese and Japanese adventurers in the abyssal city are almost constant. Mostly individual actions suppressed by higher authorities. Even I wouldn't hesitate to shoot a Japanese person in the back if I encountered one in the first realm. Time is pressing. We're all anxious, opinions clashing. Meanwhile, Yevon gently nudged Zhu, whispering, from what I understand, it was the Japanese who wronged the Chinese. Why are you, Uncle Lu, and Zheng Yusen so certain they'll attack us? Because those who owe always remember better than those who are owed. Zhu Peng cut off everyone's discussion with this statement. He pulled several shards from Zheng Yusen's bag and tossed them to the others. Then he said, let's gamble. Success will buy us a few more hours. Even if we fail, the outcome won't be worth. It's a fight to the death. Either they die or we do. Chapter 1099. You're making me anxious. 7 people stormed through the underground tomes passage. Impossible. How could someone have beaten us here? Did Li Jun sell the clues to this quest chain to someone else? Impossible. Qingzi has him completely captivated. Besides, Li Jun is proud and ambitious, focused on reaching higher levels of wizardry. We're not even in the same circle. Li Jun would risk his reputation for a low-level quest. A Japanese samurai, clad in leather armor, removed his snow cloak and strode forward, his hand gripping his gleaming katana. He quickly led his team through the tomb already cleared by Zhu Peng and his group, conversing in Japanese with the female ninja beside him, passing the stone beds where Zhu Peng's group had been surrounded, with mummified corpses on either side. The imposing samurai glanced at the mummy wrapped in thick shrouds on a nearby bed. It lay amidst a pile of decaying bones, yet the faded yellow shroud spoke of a distant past. He noted the similarity between this tomb style and that of ancient Egypt. But his anxiety urged him onward into the depths of the tomb. He was a warrior, not an archaeologist. Tenjon Darantanaka-sama, please rest assured, judging by the bonfire at the Black Stone Temple, they only recently discovered this passage to the underground tomb. If we go down now, we might catch them completely off guard. A soft, gentle voice came from his female assistant. Tenjon Salon Tanaka Jiro calmed himself and led his team quickly through the stone chamber where mummies lay on the upper and lower beds. As soon as they left, Zhu Peng and his group opened their eyes, softly exhaling the stale air from their chests. Li Jun's quest chain, a higher level of wizardry. It seems my peeking into the future and stealing others' luck has brought retribution from fate itself. That ice, flame-purple spider should die of old age in half a month. Normally, these Japanese would come here only after half a month. It's a close call. If I hadn't left Dongshu outside as a precaution. Half an hour later, Dongshu, what are those Japanese doing now? Zhu Peng lay sprawled on the stone bed, shrouded in tattered, yellowish-brown burial shrouds, to maintain the illusion. He'd even used the shattered bones from earlier to cover most of his body. The 6 of them occupied the 6 positions on the stone beds, 3 on each side, from top to bottom. If their deception was discovered, everyone except Dongshu would strike simultaneously. launching a devastating surprise attack to minimize the enemy's numerical and positional advantage. Thankfully, that worst-case scenario didn't materialize. They were currently in the stone hall where the giant spider had died. It seemed they intended to make a temporary camp there, sending the ninja ahead to scout before deciding their next move. The sight of the purple spider, slain by the captain and his team, had clearly shaken them. Their earlier aggressive demeanor was gone. "Captain, should we retreat?" "Retreat? Absolutely not. The situation has reversed. Master Cole and Uncle Liu have almost fully recovered, and I, for one, am eager to witness the famed ferocious and deadly swordsmanship and gunnery of the Japanese." The hushed conversation among the 6 mummies ended abruptly with the sound of approaching footsteps in the distance. "Damn it, any moment, the fighting could start, and your needs are still so intense, you bad boy." A cloying feminine voice, sweet as honey, was laced with a seductive reluctance, effectively igniting the strong man's passion. "You want it too, don't you, you slut? I'm slaving away for these Japanese bastards. I deserve some reward. You think I'm a fool? It's not just me, you and several others in the team have slept with each other, haven't you? That gnawed barbarian, Barolt, that perpetually cool and aloof Miota kid, our usually serious captain, and even that rogue archer, you two were lesbians, weren't you? Slut, clamp down. Having your way with you was part of the recruitment package, didn't you know? Your ninja training includes bed techniques and seduction." The powerfully built, dark-skinned Muay Thai fighter held a disabled, voluptuous girl, his rough hands already on her pale thighs, pleasuring her as he walked. Their robust physiques, honed through years of training, allowed for such strenuous activity. The Japanese girl, also highly trained, possessed exceptional flexibility. Otherwise, such demanding feats would be impossible for ordinary people. At the height of their passion, the triumphant Thai man forced the Japanese girl to kneel and prostrate herself on a stone slab piled high with bones. He then found his release amidst the mummies. The stone chamber reverberated with the sounds of their coupling, and the girl's ecstatic moans. The Japanese girl, her mind already hazy, saw a tent forming between the legs of a mummy before her. Before she could react, a blood-stained katana pierced the Muay Thai fighter's lower back, passing through her neck and out her throat. Meanwhile, Zhang Yuzhen, unable to suppress the surge of blood in his lower body, abruptly sprang from the scattered corpses. He slashed at the Muay Thai fighter's throat. Although it was his first time attacking a person, the young thief's actions were undeniably fierce and decisive. The Muay Thai fighter, already pierced through the kidneys and lower back by Liu Yidao's long blade, used his left hand to intercept the poisoned dagger at the last moment. Ignoring the puncture wound in his left hand, he unleashed a ferocious right hook, slamming it into Zhang Yuzhen's chest. However, that very moment Peng landed, his right index finger extended, delivering a brutal blow to the Muay Thai fighter's cervical spine, instantly severing the brain's control over his body below the neck. "Tell me, who's in your team? What's your setup? Fuck you." Having subdued the Muay Thai fighter, Peng, after chopping off his right arm with his axe, pressed the axe to the man's neck and asked again. The Muay Thai fighter, however, spat out a mouthful of blood with remarkable defiance. Peng blocked it with the axe head, then the blood smeared across his face. "Don't want to talk, huh? Let me tell you, your team captain is a Japanese samurai. You have 2 ninjas, a ranger. Actually, I don't really care if you give me useful intel, I just want to torture you." Chuckling, Peng swung his steel axe, severing the Muay Thai fighter's left arm. The sharp axe blade sliced through bone with effortless precision. "Tell me what everyone on your team specializes in. You can choose not to answer, and I won't ask again. The next swing will be below the belt, sending you to hell to experience the taste of being a eunuch." In a few short sentences, Peng perfectly embodied a sadistic killer. During the interrogation, a buzzing vibration emanated from the waist of the deceased girl. Liu Yido frowned, retrieving the small pink phone. He was about to crush it when Dongshu, the petite mummy beside him, snatched it away. She pressed the answer button. "Xiao he you. Ah, mite kudasai." After this emotionally charged cry, Dongshu decisively hung up, only to find everyone staring at her in astonishment. You speak Japanese." Although the Abyss City's translation was available, it was easy to distinguish languages by ear. Dongshu's cry was perfectly articulated, sounding genuinely Japanese. "What do you mean, speak Japanese? What kind of old man doesn't know a couple of island nation phrases? Old man, it's common knowledge among our generation." Returning the pink phone to Liu Yidao, Dongshu's face flushed crimson, but she affected a swagger, clapping Liu Yidao on the shoulder. Meanwhile, on the other side of the stone hall, Tanaka Jiro, captain of the 7-man team, nearly crushed his phone in his hand. "Baka! These swine, their minds are filled with lust." Tanaka's outburst caused everyone present to subconsciously look up at the stars. This chaotic team spirit had existed since the team's formation. Tanaka usually fulfilled his duties as captain, but he was, after all, a man. And once a captain loses control of himself, it becomes even harder to control others. Japanese adventure teams often pursue extreme team strength, resorting to somewhat underhanded methods to recruit skilled individuals from various countries. This tactic proved remarkably effective, allowing them to recruit many powerful teammates. In conflicts with other teams and settlements, their overwhelming strength often led to crushing victories, resulting in lax discipline. Gritting their teeth, the Japanese had to reluctantly accept this. "I'll go get them back." There's another team of professionals lurking in the shadows. Men, once aroused, truly lose their minds. A remarkably strong Caucasian woman with brown hair stood up and walked towards the stone burial chamber. Takajiro, after a moment's thought, tacitly agreed. While this woman occasionally engaged in lesbian activities with 2 female ninjas in the team for relaxation, she usually knew the priorities. If others were sent, things might quickly turn into an uninhibited orgy. Tanaka-kun. Another Japanese female ninja soothed Tanakajiro's agitated mood. Mr. Kiro might be a bit too eager for pleasure, but his strength is undeniable. He's brave and has fought hard for us, securing many benefits. He likes to relax before a big battle. She understood Kiro's nervousness. Looking at the gigantic spider in the stone hall, its body practically pulverized into a pulp, everyone present, including Captain Tanaka, felt a heavy weight in their hearts. But this mission was a direct order from the Teninke's Lady Sakimi. Failure meant death was a luxury they couldn't afford. No matter how terrifying the enemy, they had to fight. A gunshot rang out. Tanakajiro and the Japanese girl in front of him both froze. The next moment, they exchanged a look, both seeing fear in the other's eyes. It wasn't just the 2 of them. The other 2 in the stone hall instantly reacted, running towards the alley they came from, only to stop and retrieve a young man with black hair, black eyes and a cold smirk on his lips walked in step by step, followed by one subordinate after another, each radiating killing intent. I hated it when classmates watched Japanese adult films in the dorm during university. Now, in the age of Witcher, you're forcing me to watch a live version. This is incredibly stressful. I'm a goddamn practitioner of the child body cultivation technique. Chapter Yoza Tuero Confrontation. No one in this world is a fool. Seeing the Chinese man speaking Mandarin, how could Tanakajiro not guess that the 3 who entered earlier were likely doomed? Mu Lang, the Muay Thai fighter, and Kitano Ko, the ninja, were as good as dead already. But the Caucasian woman, the gunslinger, was this team's most important firepower. If she died, Lord Moon God's mission would be impossible to complete. This thought plunged Tanakajiro into bottomless fear, a fear that was instantly ignited into a raging inferno by his opponent. Damn it, kill them all. With a sudden forward roll, even before he reached them, Peng could sense a ferocious, murderous intent. The reputation of Japanese swordsmanship, built on its imposing aura, was well deserved. The female ninja behind the samurai leaped forward, throwing 3 spinning shuriken in mid-air. Landing, she unleashed 7 kunai in a rapid, frontal assault. The cleverly timed 2-wave attack created a near-impenetrable barrage of projectiles, difficult to dodge or defend against. Ninja kin to rogue, wielded light insidious weapons, often laced with deadly poison. The 4 Japanese adventurers were seasoned veterans. Their sharp eyes immediately identified the obvious weaknesses in the opposing team. The young rogue and the frail woman were clearly battlefield novices. A swift, decisive strike, eliminating a few of the enemy, would leave the rest an easy sweep. Battlefield rookies could follow along in a winning battle, but when the tide turned, they were far more likely to collapse than to persevere. The Nord, wielding his axe like a raging lion, and the young Japanese man, rapidly advancing with his dual cross spears, both targeted the shield, bearing youth at the head of the opposing 6, but Peng's companions weren't dead men. Flashed, deflecting the ninja's projectiles with a shower of sparks. Lu Yidao, clad in gleaming new leather armor, advanced, single-handed katana held high. He met Tanakajiro head on, a clash of master swordsmen, and Lu Yidao couldn't suppress his excitement. Opening a small pouch and sprinkling a yellow powder, Old Cole pointed towards the charging Nord berserker. Berserkers possessed incredible strength and constitution, growing even stronger with each injury. Once they broke through enemy lines, their tenacity and offensive power were terrifying. However, without the covering fire of a gunslinger or other ranged attackers, a low-level berserker's low agility made a frontal assault a high-risk maneuver. With Cole's pointing finger, the heavy armored berserker's charge slowed dramatically. Dust and grime clogged his armor, significantly reducing his already low agility. Suddenly, a faint golden light flashed across Nord's berserk warrior, and the next moment he resumed his agile advance, even faster than before. Then, in the next instant, he sank into a patch of stone slabs that had turned into a mud swamp. Old Cole, in the distance, had his hands pressed to the ground, constantly chanting incantations and pouring out magic. With time, he could drag the berserk warrior into the mire and suffocate him. During this sustained spellcasting, Cole had no protection other than the spells he'd cast on himself. A single bullet from afar could shatter Cole's skull, if it weren't for Peng's exceptionally brilliant performance that had earned the old wizard's trust. The wizard's first action, regardless of whether the berserk warrior could break through to the team, would absolutely not be sniping the opponent, but casting enough protective spells on himself, worthy of Cole's trust. The female ninja, who had vanished into the tomb like a phantom, fired a storm of various hidden weapons from every angle, yet Peng blocked them all within his shield's perimeter. It was merely a round shield, yet in Peng's hands it was as if water spilled on it would never touch, transforming into a wall of cold iron, as Cole continued to cast his spells and pour out magic. The Nord berserk warrior's knees and thighs sank into the mire, slowly descending further. Yuan with her gun and Zhang Yuzhen with her crossbow surrounded him, firing from a distance. Shotgun pellets and crossbow bolts struck the heavily armored berserk warrior, showering sparks. However, the vitality of professionals, especially those focused on physical attributes, was inhumanly strong. Under the two's assault, blood flowed from the Nord berserk warrior, dripping into the mire, yet he rode wildly, his breath full, showing no sign of blood loss or fatigue. The Japanese youth wielding the cross gun did not, however, come to the aid of his beleaguered comrade. Instead, he wildly spun the cross gun, charging towards the black-haired youth with the shield and the wizard who was casting spells. A furious sprint. It couldn't be said his choice was wrong. A lone rider charging with a lance, breaking through the ranks. If the Japanese youth truly broke through Zhu Peng's shield wall with his spear skills and then stabbed Cole, it would truly be a dramatic reversal, resolving the perilous situation. Therefore, the Japanese youth's eyes were fixed on Zhu Peng, the killing intent and savagery in them sharp as needles. He sprinted at high speed, 100 meters to the enemy line, intent on single-handedly breaking through. During his charge, the cross gun in the youth's hand spun rapidly like a windmill. The spear wasn't like a simple, rhombus Chinese red-tasseled spear or a point steel spear. It was an iron cross, its edges exceptionally sharp, flashing with cold light. The tip of the iron cross was a long, sharp iron spike that could pierce a person and extend a considerable length beyond. While not an enchanted weapon of great power, this cross gun was a fine example of an unenchanted weapon, the epitome of ancient earth-cold weaponry. At this moment the iron cross-shaped spear spun violently in the Japanese youth's hands, the tip creating a tearing sound like a helicopter propeller before takeoff. The ultimate technique of cross-spear art's assaulting spiral thrust. Faced with such a fierce and violent thrust, Zhu Peng only reacted at the last moment, his feet moving and his body shifting sideways by a hair's breadth, narrowly avoiding the rapidly spinning spearhead. A gust of wind grazed his cheek. However, earthly martial arts, especially Asian martial arts, emphasize concentrating all strength into a single point. Once the most powerful point of attack is evaded, the opponent's attack is effectively nullified. Seeing Zhu Peng dodge the attack, the Japanese youth remained calm, using both arms to swing the spear, aiming to knock Zhu Peng down. However, Zhu Peng's left-hand iron shield struck the spear shaft first. The spear shaft flung aside, leaving the Japanese youth wide open. In the next instant, Zhu Peng's free right hand, formed into an eagle claw, struck the youth's neck and throat. Blood sprayed as they passed each other. The Japanese youth, still clutching his cross-shaped spear, stumbled far back before collapsing to the ground. Chapter Zozu 21 Blood Sacrifice of Martial Arts. Single kill. The Japanese youth, spearman, charged far away, then fell to the ground once his momentum ceased, crimson blood slowly spreading. His spear technique was truly excellent, his strategic awareness strong, and his psychological fortitude remarkable. Unfortunately, his martial arts were impure, and he had become prematurely obsessed with women. He hadn't even reached the peak of his Mingjin strength. Against monsters, his superb spear skills could have allowed him to hold his own. However, against human opponents, these seemingly minor shortcomings were exposed. Zhu Peng shook his head in a sigh, the youthful face of the spearman flashing in his mind. What? Do you feel pity for him? Regret his death? The swamp swallowed gnawed up to his waist. After confirming the opponent's inability to escape unaided, Cole stood up again, smiling as he asked Zhu Peng, "Of course not. Their hero, my enemy. The more youthful and heroic the enemy, the sooner they must be eliminated for peace of mind." During their conversation, Zhu Peng abruptly turned his right hand, somehow producing a javelin which he threw towards the exit of the stone hall. The heavy javelin, whistling through the air, was seemingly thrown into empty space. Yet it pierced a camouflage screen and struck the female ninja who had disappeared from the battlefield in the abdomen. Since the situation had become increasingly clear, Zhu Peng had been watching the exit of the stone hall. The Japanese female ninja escaping was of little consequence, but if she had managed to destroy their supplies and those of their 5 companions, their future would have been dire. One shot found its mark. Zhu Peng didn't approach, instead hurling the remaining 6 javelins at the petite, alluring female ninja. By the time he'd thrown them all, the girl's corpse was beyond recognition. For a guaranteed kill, Zhu Peng's fighting style bordered on necrophilia. Okay, now only Uncle Liu remains. While Zhu Peng was taking down those 2, Yvonne and Zhang Yusen had completely eliminated the immobile, helpless Nord berserker, even as defeat was certain. The seemingly strong and fierce Nord begged to be made a slave warrior, but Yvonne and Zhang Yusen showed no mercy, executing him without hesitation. Not everyone in this team possesses the skill of Zhu Peng or Liu Yidao. If he were to suddenly attack when everyone's guard was down, even a berserker could pose a threat to Lao Ke, Zhang Yusen, Dongshu and even Yvonne. On the last part of the battlefield, Liu Yidao's movements were elusive, his long blade a swirling cloud as he dominated Tanaka Jiro. The old man's decades of refined swordsmanship weren't a joke, combined with the physical enhancements that restored him to his prime. His advantage was only natural. Zhu Peng and the others surrounded them, though Liu Yidao clearly didn't want interference. The others' presence was a subtle form of pressure, like home field advantage in a 21st century sporting event. If you let it affect you, that's a problem with your own mental fortitude, not anyone else's. However, some people crumble under pressure, while others thrive on it. Tanakajiro was the latter, surrounded by the enemy. The Japanese warrior's movements and swordsmanship remained flawless. His demeanor grew increasingly frenzied and desperate, employing life or death, mutually destructive technique. Liu Yidao, despite his significant advantage, was unwilling to trade blows. After 3 or 5 exchanges of careful retreat, he was surprisingly forced onto the defensive. Zhu Peng frowned slightly and stepped forward. his advance momentarily halting Tanakajiro's momentum. Sensing this, Lu Yido, without turning his head, roared, "None of you interfere! If I can't beat him alone, all these years of training have been wasted." At Lu Yido's shout, everyone looked at Zhu Peng. He frowned, hesitated, then stepped back. The spirit of a warrior, often incredibly foolish, but without that stubbornness, one can't achieve mastery in martial arts. Courage and strength are rooted in tenacious stubbornness. The clash of martial art. Jiro Tanaka, having secured a slight advantage through a perilous gamble, unexpectedly abandoned his offensive and leaped out of the combat zone. Lu Yidao frowned, but didn't counterattack, his blade still. Jiro Tanaka, after bowing deeply to his opponent, slowly knelt to the ground. What does he mean? Does he think that by kneeling we won't kill him? Dongshu was a little confused, whispering to Zhang Yusen beside her. In Japanese martial arts etiquette, when encountering a worthy opponent, a samurai chooses to relinquish everything and display their full skill. This is typically a ritual chosen when facing certain death. Zhang Yusen stammered, unable to fully answer, while Zhu Peng, from a distance, casually responded to Dong, and by extension everyone else present. Japanese masters' adherence to Di Li Wu and Tanchan are a systematic culture, formed naturally by the fusion of ancient etiquette with the development of Japanese karate and judo into an industry. The Tanaka family had run a martial arts dojo for 3 generations. Jiro had trained since the age of 7, inheriting the family business at 19, and lived by the sword for the following 20 years, marrying, having children. My martial arts have become my life. This respectable old gentleman Jiro knew that death was certain today, and his only wish was to display his life skill. Born of martial arts, dying by martial arts, a life without regret. Though spoken in Japan, every word reached the ears of everyone present, and for the head of the Lu school, these words ignited a fervent response. Good. Though our stances differ, I guarantee that at least in this duel, no one will interfere until the victor is decided. Come. Willow One Cut raised his filled with spirit. Jiro Tanaka is more skilled with unarmed combat, and didn't wish to rely on a weapon's advantage. Old man, how about we fight empty-handed? As he spoke, Jiro Tanaka unbelted his 2 katanas, drawing them and discarding the scabbards. The katana he regularly used was unremarkable, but his secondary blade, which he hadn't used, was inlaid with a cracked yellow gem, with faint magical runes and electric light shimmering on its blade. Clearly an enchanted weapon, yet now it was discarded with disdain. Good, I'm 20 years older than you, and superior swordsmanship wouldn't be a feat. I won't take advantage of that. As he spoke, Willow One Cut held his sword before him, then struck the blade with his knee. With a clang, the sword snapped in 2. This sight nearly made Cole and Zhang Yusen's jaws hit the floor. Though this blade has been with me for a long time, it suffered internal cracks during the battle with the giant spider. You must have sensed it during our exchange. With 3 to 5 more strikes it would have broken, giving you a considerable advantage. But unbeknownst to you, the Lias have practiced swordsmanship for generations, possessing a unique disarming strike technique to exploit the weaknesses of a broken blade. In a weapons fight, you would certainly die at your most triumphant, most advantageous moment. The old man, in a fit of youthful exuberance, hearing this secret Lu family technique, which should never be revealed, knew that the old man was completely beyond reason. He truly intended to fight this Japanese warrior fairly. After both discarded their weapon, they each assumed a fighting stance. Zhu Peng raised his chin, gesturing for Zhang Yusen to retrieve the 2 katanas. Japanese martial arts blend military strategy and martial prowess. Military strategy, or the art of deception, prioritizes victory by any means necessary. While old man Lu was enthused, Zhu Peng couldn't help but worry that Tanaka Jiro might suddenly seize a weapon and strike the old man during the heat of battle, something a Japanese warrior would absolutely do. However, Tanaka Jiro remained remarkably calm about Zhang Yusen taking his weapons, seemingly unconcerned. The more nonchalant he appeared, the more apprehensive Zhu Peng became, yet he could overtly intervene. The weapon fight had already transitioned into unarmed combat, significantly reducing the danger. If Zhu Peng dared to stop it now, old man Lu would undoubtedly turn on him. Within the spacious stone hall, blood, corpses, and heinous hades reaped the blood and souls it had long craved. 2 practitioners of Earth's civilization stood facing each other, ready to deliver their opponent's final blow with their life's work. This wasn't a friendly competition where camaraderie came first, it was a life or death martial arts duel. Having discarded their weapons, after a brief stalemate, they quickly engaged in a deadly embrace. While unarmed combat is safer than a weapons fight, this safety is relative, especially in a duel between 2 masters of hidden energy. Unarmed combat simply means it's less likely to completely dismember your opponent, leaving some room for rescue. The moment he struck, old man Lu thrust his hands forward, his front foot stepping, his back foot pushing off, his fists drawn in before charging forward. He abandoned the usual oblique, flanking attacks characteristic of the Lu school of swordsmanship, instead launching a direct, central attack like a singing mask. His punch aimed squarely at the center, the force incredibly fierce. The old man's punch unleashed a force that created a 360-degree ripple of dust around his feet. The immense recoil traveled from his legs to his waist, hips, shoulders, elbows, and finally to his fists, culminating in a devastatingly powerful punch that slammed into Tanaka Jiro's face. Those around felt the impact of old man Lia's overwhelming aura. It seemed that his fist was enveloped in raging flames. Old Man Liu's punch expanded in terrifying energy surging around him, finally converging on his fist. Sharp and terrifying. Chapter 1020 Defying Heaven, the heavenly serpent transforms into a dragon. No wonder Uncle Liu agreed to this Japanese man's duel request. After this period of fighting and bloodshed, his hidden strength was on the verge of a breakthrough. That's right, he's different from me. His hidden strength martial arts were only limited by his gradually aging physique, now with a large amount of demonic essence supplementing his constitution. Plus years of accumulated resources, Uncle Liu's breakthrough was natural, only needing a martial arts sacrifice of sufficient level to catalyze it. A thought flashed through Zhu Peng's mind, and he instantly understood Liu Yidao's plan, but felt a strange sensation in his heart. Fist-based hidden strength, a realm he might never truly touch in his lifetime. If the bystanders' hearts were slightly stirred by Liu Yidao's imposing aura, then Tanakajiro, who was directly facing Liu Yidao's punch aimed at his heart, felt something else entirely. It was like standing on a reef facing a monstrous wave, swallowing everything. The realm of martial arts Liu Yidao displayed in an instant filled Tanakajiro with immense fear. However, with nowhere to retreat, he gritted his teeth, using the fear in his heart to forcefully concentrate all controllable blood and energy in his right arm. With the concentration of blood and energy, his right arm muscles swelled, his skin bulged, and the next moment, an arm like an iron rod struck down at the side of Liu Yidao's fist with a mountain-splitting force. A clang echoed like the clash of fine steel. The iron rod-like arm, carrying the sound of wind and thunder, slammed into the side of Liu Yidao's fist, immediately halting the opponent's surging momentum. Yet Tanakajiro still retreated a step. Liu Yidao, after these past 15 days of honing, had increased his physique by a full 9 points, though aged and frail. His strength was now no less than Tanakajiro's. However, Tanakajiro's daring choice of unarmed combat certainly went beyond this. He took a step back, but his body leaned forward, using his body to drive his arm, and his arm to drive his fist. His blood-filled iron arm suddenly took on a supple force, transforming from iron rods into nunchaku, his two arms smashing down at Liu Yidao. Liu Yidao retracted his right hand, extending his left, delivering another half-step explosive punch aimed directly at the heart. This second punch wasn't as ferocious and awe-inspiring as the first, but the inch force was nearly twice as fast. The left-handed gun fist pierced towards Tanakajiro's chest and abdomen like a spear. No, he's one step faster than me. If I continue to smash down, he'll blow through my chest and abdomen first. Tanakajiro felt the imminent force and ferocity of the incoming punch on the skin between his chest and abdomen. If he took it head-on, Tanakajiro would be pierced through. At that moment, the force of his downward punches would be spent, and even if he wanted to die with Liu Yidao, he wouldn't be able to. Tanakajiro quickly lowered his elbows to block the explosive punch. Simultaneously, his foot sprang, his leg like a curved blade, slashing at Liu Yidao's ankle joint. However, this surprise attack with a hidden leg strike was detected by Liu Yidao. The old man simultaneously leaped, executing a counter kick. Their legs collided with a metallic clang, before both landed back on the ground. At the same, Liu Yidao's left fist smashed into Tanakajiro's hastily lowered forearms. Borrowing the force, he retracted his right hand, his fist clenched like a flame, delivering another half-step explosive punch. This punch seemed to utilize some of the force from his left fist, forcing Tanakajiro to retreat. This retreat, however, signified a collapse of momentum. Despite being renowned for his unorthodox swordsmanship, the old man Liu unexpectedly unleashed 9 consecutive heavy and ferocious half-step explosive punches, relentlessly pushing Tanakajiro back and preventing any meaningful counterattack. Although these 9 punches left Tanakajiro battered and exhausted, Liu Yidao's own momentum began to inevitably decline. The unrelenting ferocity of these 9 punches, pushing his martial arts to the limit, proved too much even for the 60-year-old Liu. It was at the moment Liu Yidao's momentum began to wane that Tanakajiro, who had endured with stoic patience, pushing the limits of Japanese martial arts emphasis on restraint, finally sprung like a coil, unleashing a counterattack after extreme suppression. As Tokugawa Ieyasu, the great warlord of Japan's Sengoku period, once said, "Life is like a long journey with a heavy load. Only by bearing enough weight can one travel far enough." Facing Liu Yidao's ferocious and violent 9 punches, a tide of killing force, Tanakajiro had suppressed himself to the limit, but he had also pushed his own potential to the extreme. The clash of their fighting spirits created a palpable connection. The moment Liu Yidao's momentum fell, Tanakajiro unleashed his true strength. He roared, a sound like Zhu Peng's pure yang inner energy, a dragon's roar, a tiger's howl, his kui filling his body, his lungs expanding as he expelled a powerful blast of air. This expelled blast was like a high-pressure boiler releasing steam, a clearly visible ball of air the size of a basketball. Amidst this series of roars and howls, the momentum Tanakajiro had suppressed to the limit coalesced and then exploded. He stepped forward, like a Japanese warrior standing on a reef, slashing at a monstrous wave. With his movement, his right hand slashed upwards and outwards. This hand-driven sword strike possessed immense momentum. At that very instant, a faint blue mist emanated from Tanakajiro's body, particularly around the right-hand blade, glowing with a distinct icy blue light. This further enhanced the already imposing spirit of his strike, a gesture of defiance against heaven, a sword cleaving the waves, adding 12-fold to its destructive power. Wave Q! Among the onlookers, Zhu Peng's eyes widened. Others couldn't recognize it, but Zhu Peng, who had researched and almost mastered Wave Q, could immediately identify it. By this point, however, even if Zhu Peng wanted to intervene, it was too late. This wave, like Duqiu, was Tanaka-Jira's truly ultimate secret killing move. Duqiu condensed in a hand knife, like a wave-cleaving blade, slashed diagonally. The sound, power, force, momentum, and strength were unparalleled, surpassing even the accumulated power of Riecho's 9 consecutive half-step explosive punches, especially the roar of the ocean spreading from Tanaka-Jiru, the sweeping force giving a feeling of an overwhelming tide, an immersive experience. But at that moment a series of bone-cracking sounds spread throughout Riechijo's body, accompanied by a suppressed roar like a dragon's cry. In that instant, even those completely unfamiliar with martial arts, Cole, Ivan, Dongshu, felt Riecho's joy and satisfaction. A lifetime of martial arts, aged and weakened by illness, the age of witches, achieving mastery. In the 21st century, Riechijo was like an aging giant python, strong, yet unable to ascend to the heavens and transform into a dragon. Until the abyss invaded, witches descended, and all predetermined destinies changed, the aging python seized the opportunity to ride the waves and rise. Within the dragon-like roar of the python's transformation, Ryuichijo surpassed his limits, his arms striking out, delivering the 10th explosive punch after the 9 previous ones. The celestial serpent transformed into a dragon. Although far less intricate than Tanaka-Jira's hand knife imbued with azure Du-Ki, these 2 punches contained the beliefs and perseverance of a lifetime of a Chinese martial artist, striking out a semi-transparent airwave visible to the naked eye. Boom! The punches and the hand knife collided, the vortex air wave and the cleaving Du-Ki tide clashing. Bang! Without a moment's pause, Tanaka-Jira's body was enveloped by the vortex air wave, so that except for his right arm, covered in azure Du-Ki, the flesh around his body was shredded and crushed in the vortex. The Du-Ki wave was dispersed by Ryuichijo, causing his entire body to crack with sword-like wounds and lacerations, resembling a net. Taro slowly fell, while Ryuichijo, equally blood-soaked, stood straight. Moments later, the grey-haired, aged swordsman retracted his hands, stared at his fists, then at his completely defeated opponent. Suddenly, he laughed wildly, a magnificent cry of triumph. A lifetime's hardship all paid off in this long, joyous laugh, except for his right arm. Tanaka-Jira was nearly pulverized, as if his body had been cruelly crushed between 2 millstones. Liu Yido's punch transcended the limits of Earth-era martial artists. It was in effect achievable only with the combined power of multiple forces from the post-Witch era. On one hand, the vortex of power he unleashed was ferociously strong due to his enhanced physique. On the other, Tanaka-Jira's use of unfamiliar chi likely caused his body's energy to misfire, leaving him utterly defenseless, resulting in such a horrifying scene. Amongst the scattered fragments of bone and flesh, Zhu Peng retrieved a miniature pistol. Tanaka-Jira's plan was probably to pull out his gun during the fight and get a few good shots in. Martial artists using guns are often unpredictable, a situation leading to either mutual destruction or a chance to escape. However, Tanaka-Jira never imagined that Liu Yidao, whose movements were slippery and focused on unorthodox attacks during his swordplay, would opt for close-quarters combat in hand-to-hand, unleashing 9 brutal half-step exploding fists, leaving Tanaka-Jira no chance to draw his weapon before being forced to unleash an incompletely mastered chi-powered martial arts technique. The impure technique, however, proved no match for Liu Yidao's mastery of both overt and covert force in his fist fighting. Steadily approaching the realm of Huading, he completely overwhelmed Tanaka-Jira, who never got the chance to draw his gun, until his death wore his deception. But relying solely on deception is biased, to act with righteous authority and decisive action, just as Uncle Liu did. Watching Liu Yidao's prolonged laughter, Zhu Peng secretly hid the miniature pistol behind his back before disposing of it in a corner, unwilling to let this troublesome thing spoil the old man's good mood. 7 professionals, utterly annihilated. It wasn't about anything else, simply because I could reveal my weakness to you. Chapter Hodru 23 Happy Chores. The complete annihilation of the 7 primarily Japanese professionals was a resounding victory. But that didn't mean everyone could pack up and go home. On the contrary, there was much to be done. Such are the worries of the victor. Those lying dead in the earth need not trouble themselves with such matters. First, Zhu Peng led the others to move both their own supplies and those left by the Japanese into the underground tomb. For the next month or so, most of the team would be residing in the Haines tomb. The Japanese ER's ample provisions greatly eased the logistical pressure on Zhu Peng and his team. They had a large quantity of canned food and rations, hard-to-find commodities after the abyssal descent. Many industries on Earth hadn't yet recovered within the abyssal city. Things like canned goods were often remnants of a bygone era. After supplying the underground tomb with provisions, Zhu Peng, Jiang Yushan, and Cole worked together to camouflage the crack in the Blackstone temple leading to the tomb. Zhu Peng did the handiwork. Jiang Yushan improvised, applying techniques gleaned from Agile-class professional training videos, while Cole cast a minor spell that made the camouflage subconsciously ignorable. Though for a high-level wizard, such a spell might be less effective than no spell at all. The magical fluctuations could attract unwanted attention. Generally speaking, a truly capable first-order wizard wouldn't bother with a low-level mission point like the Blackstone Temple. Old Cole, despite limitations stemming from his origin plane's lower level of civilization, possessed exceptional knowledge and accumulated spells for an apprentice. essentially a comprehensively weakened version of a full-fledged wizard. After Cole's spell, the animal hide sealing the crack in the stone blended seamlessly with its surroundings, the effect almost equaling the combined efforts of Peng and Jiang Yushen. Magic is so convenient, Jiang Yushen couldn't help but exclaim, looking at the result, the accumulation of knowledge, the construction of spell models, enhancing mental strength through years of meditation and converting it into magical reserves, and even inherent limitations on mental aptitude. What you see is only the result. Peng, a wizard apprentice himself, retorted, swiftly quashing Jiang Yushen's wild fantasies of combining wizardry and thievery. He had first-hand experienced the breadth of knowledge required for a wizard was, by far, the most extreme and absurd among all professions Peng knew. Jiang Yushen and Peng, with their backgrounds, were different. Peng's martial arts foundation would provide him with a wealth of resources for his wizardry path, while for Jiang Yushen, the priority was to master the agile class professional system as quickly as possible. After completing the camouflage, having Dongshu periodically place the nether eye at the Blackstone Temple entrance, and the crack would ensure they wouldn't be caught off guard. Next was organizing equipment and handing in the timed mission. The 7-person group's purpose was clear. They had hardly lingered after leaving the Abyssal City, heading straight for the frozen tundra. So their greatest spoils after their deaths were their equipment and personal belongings. There were few other magical items or currency. Even so, the 7 members' weapons and equipment were heavy and expensive, requiring Luido to transport them to the settlement for sale, while concurrently submitting the completed timed mission of the death cap, Futu Dugu. Though it has a mild toxicity that can cause diarrhea if ingested, applied externally it has hemostatic and regenerative effects, making it a crucial component in the styptic potions brewed by apprentice wizards studying pharmaceutics. It's rare above ground, but in underground environments, especially deep mountain burial chambers where people have died, it's not uncommon to find it growing abundantly. Almost like a weed, gathering Futus poisonous mushrooms is a fairly common task, popping up regularly. Therefore, Peng and the others collected a good supply from the upper levels of the mostly cleared burial chamber. This way, if they encounter the task again, they won't have to make a special trip. Damn it. After all the hard work I put in to break through to the Huajin realm, the first thing I'm doing is acting as a porter. This is demeaning, shouldering a cross-shaped iron spear, a heavy axe, and a shield and armor, with 2 samurai swords strapped to his waist. Old Man Lu looked like a shopkeeper carrying his entire inventory. Even if you break through to the Dan realm of martial arts and become a land immortal, you still need to eat, and you still have to work. In this entire team, only you and I are best suited for this job. But my god, can you really protect Master Cole and even while I'm gone? If Jiang Yushen went, carrying all this stuff back, he'd probably be chopped up along the way. Master Cole can protect himself, but he's almost 100 years old, he can't carry all this. The bottom line is that we're too poor and too weak, we can't afford spatial equipment. Otherwise there'd be no need for you, old man, to run back and forth so hard. Sigh. Only to be patted on the shoulder by the old man in front of him. Penja, you're the best leader I've ever seen. Do you think everyone is worthy of me risking my neck to follow? I only decided to come along because I believe you'll succeed, and I feel secure following you. We'll get spatial equipment eventually. You'll become increasingly stronger. Penga, even if only one person ever breaks through to the 5th realm, I, Lu Yido, believe that person will be you. Having said this, the old man, carrying his goods like a pack mule, left the Blackstone Temple. In the entire adventuring party, only he possessed the strength and experience to handle everything that might happen while traveling alone. Watching the old man leave until he was completely out of sight, Peng returned to the Blackstone Temple, lifted the animal skin used for camouflage, and crawled back into the underground burial chamber. Meanwhile, old Cole, using a magnifying, was meticulously examining the murals and inscriptions on the walls of the spacious stone hall. Yevon and Donghu were sorting through their belongings, trying to make their living quarters as clean and comfortable as possible for the next month. Jiang Yushen was pushing himself to his limits. With every swing of his dagger, large beads of sweat trickled down his cheeks and splattered onto the dusty ground. No one achieves greatness easily. The strengthening of the body. Jiang Yushen's current state reminded Peng of his own rigorous martial arts training, exhausted, yet fulfilled and exhilarated. Chapter 024 Devouring the Strong, Consuming Powerful Sustenance, Underground. Around 6 p.m., the surrounding lights blazed brightly. Although living in an underground tomb blurred the lines between day and night, Peng still insisted that all team members maintain a regular work and life schedule. Maintaining a semblance of order in the semi-abyssal plane was one way to avoid chaos. Peng sat by the fire, stirring a pot of stew. In the small iron pot over the fire were canned pork, rice, ginger, and some dried mushrooms. Any food seemed to improve threefold under Peng's touch. Moreover, the ingredients, a contribution from the Japanese, were of excellent quality. The aroma wafted through the air as the stew simmered. Even the most stoic old Cole lifted his head 3 times a minute. As for the book in his lap, who knows how much he actually read? He ladled the meat porridge into 5 stainless steel bowls. Everyone then enjoyed the rich, hot porridge with dry biscuits. The thick porridge and soft biscuits complemented each other, making this simple meal surprisingly satisfying. The chill of the tomb was dispelled by the body heat naturally generated after this hearty meal. This was also one of Peng's reasons for adding ginger to the porridge. It wasn't just for flavor. After dinner, everyone went their separate ways. Old Cole approached Peng. Captain, based on my analysis of the murals and texts here, I've come to a rather interesting conclusion. As he spoke, Old Cole unfolded a dirty rag before Peng. On the rag was a rubbing Cole had made from a wall carving, a heavily armored knight, demonic in appearance, wielding a long-handled axe with one hand. Descended from the sky astride a giant spider. Below the rubbing was a line of Hain's ancient script, which Cole, fearing Peng's knowledge might be insufficient, had thoughtfully translated into wizard's tongue, and fear descend to the great spider knight Trillius. Based on the information provided by the mural, if I'm not mistaken, this isn't the end of the underground tomb. The ice flame giant spider wasn't the most powerful tomb guardian, it was merely the mount of this powerful knight named Trillius, eternally guarding his deceased master. Old Cole was rather pleased. In most adventurer teams, a willing wizard often served as the team's brain. However, this time his pride was premature. This certainly wasn't the end of the crypt. The Hain civilization didn't have a penchant for spider worship, let alone a living ice flame giant spider. After a somewhat inexplicable glance at Master Cole, Peng approached the sacrificial altar in the center of the stone hall. He pulled a rust-covered iron ring in a hidden corner. With a series of clicking jeers, the altar sank, revealing a large passage from which the sound of an underground river echoed. Assuming a tomb's construction, finding this mechanism wasn't difficult. This was the passage to the final resting place of the demonic spider knight Trillius. However, you weren't entirely wrong. The ice flame giant spider was indeed guarding its deceased master. It was very old. If we had arrived half a month later, it would have likely died of old age. Arriving half a month wasn't bad either. At least it provided Uncle Lou with a set of blue quality leather armor. With that, Peng pulled another iron ring, and the mechanism clicked back into place, raising the altar. The scenes unfolding before him had already been enacted by a faint blue humanoid figure. If Peng and the others hadn't come to the crypt, this scene would have been played out by the Japanese samurai. Peng knew about his uncanny ability to glimpse the future, but Cole didn't. The poor old man, watching the young man speak with such assurance and understanding, felt his efforts had been wasted. Still, the old wizard couldn't help but ask, since you know this leads to the true Tomb Master's chamber, why did you send Lu Yido back to the settlement? Old Lu is a crucial part of our fighting force. Uncle Lia's skills have recently improved greatly. Sending him back, besides the team need, is to give him time to consolidate his strength. We won't touch this tomb during his absence. This passage leads directly to the canyon. Master Cole, you haven't forgotten the horde of monsters and 3 elite creatures gathered there, have you? Uncle Lu needs to consolidate his strength, but I even, Jiang Yuzhen, and even you don't. Over the next month we'll wipe out those monsters and then, in our strongest state, await Uncle Lia's return. Together, we will face the now spiderless Death Knight Trillius and complete our final, most important task in the crypt. He pointed to the crypt's exit, a canyon teeming with monsters. Few teams of First Realm adventurers could take them all on at once, but using the crypt as a base to steadily chip away at them, that's entirely doable. Old Cole listened to Peng's plan, nearly pulling his beard out in frustration, feeling his efforts had been entirely in vain. Trellis, the Spider Knight, and his mount were both near the peak of First Order beings in the Hain civilization, once dominating a region and enjoying immense prestige. The valley within the frozen mountains was, for the monsters dwelling there, a place of richness and happiness. However, this tranquil life was shattered a fortnight ago by a group of despicable, wicked, and greedy adventurers. Within the heavy stone door of the underground crypt, Guoshu, having spent the last 2 weeks eating well and exercising moderately, had regained her former beauty and vitality. She currently held a telescope, half her body protruding from the stone doorway as she scanned her surroundings. The creatures within the First Realm's Venom Throne possessed relatively little intelligence, instinctively fearing the pressure emanating from the crypt's owner, and therefore dared not approach. Dongshu's reconnaissance position was thus extremely safe, but the girl remained exceptionally cautious. She was the eyes of the entire adventuring team, important and fragile. Below the central mountain range of the frozen peaks, Peng and his companions were making the most of the terrain to mitigate their numerical disadvantage. 90% of the monsters in the frozen mountain valley were skeletons, but these common undead cannon fodder, when exceeding a certain number, presented a formidable tide like assault. Jiang Yuzhen stamped his foot, using the force to charge his right shoulder into a goal. The well-honed, full-body force shoulder tackle sent the charging goal staggering back 5 or 6 steps. As the distance opened slightly, Jiang Yuzhen raised his crossbow, unleashing a 3-shot volley that struck the girl's head, instantly blasting the notoriously tough undead creature to pieces. Both Master Cole's double fire tongue spell and the war axes wielded by Peng's Jackoman were highly effective at clearing swaths of skeleton soldiers. Especially effective was Peng's tactic of having a mutated green slime mimic Old Cole. Its double fire tongue spell only reached the power of Old Cole's single-handed version, but even so, it significantly eased the pressure of the endless waves of skeletons. After a fortnight of daily training, Jiang Yuzhen looked considerably stronger and more capable. He stood guard in the middle of the team, constantly stringing his steel crossbow and picking off small numbers of ghouls within sight. Peng, meanwhile, faced a heavily armored knight. Left hand holding a shield, right hand raised high with a longsword, a Ghoul Knight elite. This fellow's charge and sword swing delivered incredible instantaneous attack power. His skeletal steed, like its master, was enveloped in layers of bone. From a distance, the mini-boss knight looked quite imposing and powerful, but on closer inspection, a foul stench accompanied a pale green aura, spreading outwards. Every breath Peng took caused a stabbing pain in his lungs, leaving him with a growing sense of poisoning. The corpse knight's decaying aura steadily weakened the stats of all non-undead creatures around it. Fast, strong, and aggressive, its fighting style was as brutal and swift as a hawk diving from the sky, further enhanced by its debilitating aura. Thankfully, Peng's team included a veteran apprentice with an impressive stockpile of knowledge. After their encounter with the corpse knight, and for the sake of their noses and lungs, Cole used his available materials to concoct a potion similar to an air freshener. As soon as the corpse knight appeared, he shattered the vial, neutralizing the effect of the decaying aura within a certain radius. Peng actually thought an oxygen tank might be even more effective against the decaying aura, but the current conditions made it impossible to acquire one. The moment the corpse knight appeared, Peng lunged, the Alini bow, single-handedly wielding its sword, charged on horseback. Peng concealed himself behind his ice shield, but he lightning-fast hurled 5 javelins. The corpse knight's left-hand triangular shield absorbed 4 of the heavy javelins before the 5th shattered it completely. Though weakened, the spear still pierced its left arm just as the heavily armored knight charged. The skeletal horse's hooves pounded heavily on Peng's shield, while the knight's extraordinarily long double-handed sword swung down like a whip. Peng sidestepped the horse's trampling attack, meeting the blow with his axe. A clang of metal echoed across the battlefield. The corpse knight, having gained no advantage and lost its shield, wheeled its horse and fled. They had clashed at least 10 times in the past 2 weeks, and Peng had nearly killed it several times. Even with its low intelligence, it had learned strategic retreat. Peng, protected by his blue-quality leather armor and his superior internal martial arts, paid little attention to the surrounding skeleton soldiers. However, he still pursued, swiftly smashing a few skeletons before quickly retreating. The moment Peng left the group, Cole and Yven's positions became dangerously exposed. There was no need to risk their lives for a task that could be completed with time and patience. Chapter 25 Push. The convenience of Datum draws armor. Blue equipment. Leather armor. Defense 21 required. Level 2 fire resistance. Ply 5 ice resistance. Slot 10 poison resistance. Plot 10 bending effect reduced by half within a first order radius. Lido returned to the settlement as a porter. Turning in the quest and discarding unnecessary equipment and supplies, he took off the blue quality cloth armor had looted from the Icefire giant spider and gave it to Peng. Although it was only a temporary loan, Peng's shield skills were more proficient, and Lu Yida needed the armor much more. The blue armor, combined with Peng's internal martial arts, created a synergistic effect far greater than the sum of its parts. If one were to quantify it, even if Peng were to stand passively amidst the sea of skeletal soldiers, the data emanating from his body would be a string of 0-1, 2-1. The majority of the skeletal soldiers' feeble attacks would be unable to pierce his defenses. Of course, Peng didn't possess the ability to maintain a peak state of hardened muscles and impenetrable body armor 24 hours a day. If he truly fell into an endless sea of skeletons and couldn't break free in time, he would still die. Beep beep. 2 urgent whistle blasts suddenly rang out. Upon hearing the signal, all the adventurers began to retreat consciously. The first-tier domain creatures lacked the intelligence to suppress their instincts. They couldn't violate the authority of higher-level creatures and enter the underground tomb. This was a key reason why the 5 adventurers had almost completely annihilated the creatures in the Frozen Land Canyon over the past half-month. They would never be trapped in a battle of attrition without a way out. The adventurers fought and retreated, unhurried in their calm confidence. After the corpse knights retreated, a pale black whirlwind, carrying a large swath of shattered bones, charged towards them aggressively. The bone whirlwind, physical damage reduction, magical damage. This was the signature mobility skill of the mutated bone giant, transforming this ostensibly tank-like mini-boss into the most agile and ferocious creature in the Frozen Land Canyon. Interfered by the surrounding skeletal soldiers, the adventurers' retreat speed was significantly slower than the bone giant's whirlwind charge. Based on the current situation, the 4 would be intercepted by the bone giant before they could return to the underground tomb. As the number of creatures in the canyon dwindled, the mini-bosses with a modicum of instinctual intelligence were clearly growing desperate. Survival was not merely a human instinct.
Captain, we can't escape. All out attack!
With a roar, Peng adjusted his Unit Yo-1 glasses. A waterfall of code cascaded down, and the world was datafied before his eyes. Simultaneously, hearing Peng's command, Cole Even and Zhang Yuzhen, already prepared, unleashed their maximum attack power. The moment the bone whirlwind appeared, Cole began condensing a blue orb of annihilation in his left hand. This spell had minimal effect on physical units. It was designed to disperse energy particles. The blue orb of annihilation slammed into the bone whirlwind at the old wizard's command. In the next instant, a massive explosion dispersed energy particles in a 360-degree radius. Large quantities of yellowish-white bones, stripped of their wind elemental particle coating, rained down. The adventurers heard the bone giant's roar of excruciating pain. The damage inflicted upon it was even clear to Zhu Peng. In the digitized observation world of the number 1, the bone giant's health points had been nearly halved by Cole's attack in that instant. The high attack power of a wizard wasn't just derived from the destructive nature of their spells. Even more terrifying was the targeted countermeasures they could deploy thanks to their accumulated knowledge. Experienced wizard possessed a vast array of spells, and by combining them, they could demonstrate astonishing power and superiority in almost any situation. The bone giant, heavily impacted by the destruction orb, rapidly coalesced from its dispersed state. It attempted to revert to its strong, ferocious form, but before it could fully reconstitute, 2 grenades were deftly tossed into its bony frame by Yevon. The moment the bone giant landed, 2 massive explosions erupted from within its body. At that very instant, Xuanhuan hurled a vial of deep green reagent onto the bone giant. A poisonous cloud billowed forth, turning the mutated mini-boss a ghastly green as large chunks of bone melted and fell away. Roar! The bone giant, suffering grievous injuries, roared towards the heavens, its magical vortex expanding outward. Surrounding broken and even living skeleton soldiers were pulled in, rapidly merging into the bone giant's rapidly shrinking body. In the data visualized world provided by number 1, Zhu Peng saw the bone giant's health plummet to barely 1/5, then begin to rapidly replenish at an alarming rate, seemingly capable of infinite regeneration as long as sufficient skeletal remains were available. This of course was impossible, even with infinite skeletons. It still required sufficient magical energy to perform this feat. Beep beep. Dongshu inside the tombstone gate frantically blew on her whistle. 1 beep signified 1 mini-boss, 2 beeps 2 and 3 beeps 3. A single mini-boss was manageable for the adventurer team, 2 required caution, but if 3 mini-bosses appeared within Dongshu's sight, the team would need to retreat swiftly back into the underground tomb. The appearance of the voodoo mage elite was particularly worrisome. This fellow's long-range spells possessed devastating power far surpassing that of the Corpsea Knights and Bone Giant combined, due to the Bone Giant's desperate self-preservation measures consuming a large number of skeleton soldiers. The remaining ones failed to keep pace, allowing Cole and the others to retreat unimpeded to the underground tomb's entrance. Zhu Peng, come back! Yevon called back urgently. Zhu Peng adjusted his number 1 glasses, and a ring of faintly black energy rippled outward from his body. The next moment, he charged towards the Bone Giant, which had recovered about 1/3 of its health, like a dark arrow loosed from a bow. Cole, Yevon, and Xuanhuan stood at the entrance of the tomb, none of them entering. They turned to watch Zhu Peng, whose fighting style was always exceptionally calm, charge towards the skeletal giant like a speeding arrow. The skeleton soldiers and even the rotting corpses that had just rushed forward were smashed and shattered by Zhu Peng's left-hand shield, its speed increasing with each blow. A large amount of dark energy, visible to the naked eye, gradually condensed on the pure steel axe in Zhu Peng's right hand until he charged before the skeletal giant. The 3-meter-tall bone giant swung a mighty fist downwards. At that very moment, the dark flames on Zhu Peng's axe reached their peak. Wolf fighting spirit, limit break, brutal, wolf clan secret swordsmanship, shadow fang, secret sword killing move, greedy wolf 7 kills. The skeletal giant's powerful punch landed on empty air. A shadow swirled around its arm and upwards. In that instant, Cole and the others felt as if their eyes were being slashed by 7 pitch black claws. The next moment Zhu Peng, his body drenched in sweat and the dark energy dissipating, appeared in midair behind the skeletal giant's head. He plummeted downwards. However, before Yevon, Xuanhuan, and the others could even cry out, a powerful, axe-toothed warrior creature was already waiting below on all fours. It leaped up, catching its master on its back. At the same time, the shattered bones of the skeletal giant rained down. The skeletal giant, with only 1/3 of its health remaining, had been instantly killed by Zhu Peng's limit-breaking killing move. There was no time to collect the dropped equipment. Zhu Peng merely caught a diamond that had flown into the air before being carried away by the were-creature, swiftly retreating into the underground tomb. At that very moment, a massive cloud of poison rained down from the sky. The intensely concentrated, flesh-eating, bone-corroding, terrifying, emerald-green poisonous gas spread, even seeping into the underground tomb, forcing the 5 to hastily evade it. Zhu Peng, Xuanhuan, Xuanhuan, and even Dongshu, whose heart was pounding wildly, were utterly exhausted. They hadn't felt it during the intense battle, but now, back in safety, the 5 of them looked at each other, their appearance a testament to the fierce struggle, and burst into unrestrained laughter. The exhilarating battle, the trust in leaving their backs to their comrades, the joy of a successful retreat, the satisfaction of their own growing strength, these feelings combined to create a heady brew, potent and unforgettable. After catching their breath, Xuanhuan looked at Zhu Peng with longing. "Captain," he said, "did you cultivate dark fighting spirit? Those moves were incredible." That skeletal giant was practically blown to smithereens in an instant. "If I wanted to, I could have done it long ago," Zhu Peng replied. "However, I didn't want to initially focus on wolf fighting spirit. It's too extreme, and its scope is too limited. If I had majored in dark battle Q, I wouldn't be this exhausted after that sword technique. Simply using spiritual power to manipulate dark elemental particles for that move puts an enormous strain on my body. After a half-month of constant fighting and slaughter, tier level 3, Not far from level 4, it was a perfect advancement with 5 free attribute points. After raising his spiritual power to 29, just a hair's breadth from becoming a 3rd rank apprentice, Zhu Peng added the remaining attribute point to his constitution. Name: Zhu Peng. Species: human. 19 strength, 16 agility, 15 to spirit, 29 will, 22 intelligence. 12 total attributes: unknown elemental resistances, fire resistant, poison resistance. +10 warrior rank. Oath tier level 3 warrior class swordsman wizard. Constitution is the foundation of strength and agility. Spirit is the source of will and intelligence. Theoretically, as long as the source is strong enough, strength, agility, will, and intelligence will gradually increase with training. However, in reality, over 95% of professional practitioners' efforts don't reach the level of relying on talent alone. Shadow Mask. Promotion to 3rd rank apprentice. Simply relying on self-training to improve constitution, strength, and agility is absolutely no match for the efficiency of adventurers who have free attribute points and can upgrade with a single click. Especially when self-training reaches a bottleneck, it's already good enough for cultivators to maintain their condition without regressing. To improve further, they either have to break through the limit and overcome the bottleneck, or become a practitioner within the Witchnet system, become a lapdog of the sky, reaching Witch Tower. In a sense, the one-click upgrade under the Witchnet's umbrella is indeed the kingly road to advancement for practitioners. An ordinary civilized world could never capture a 7th-order god, let alone be generous enough to allow its people to freely extract its essence. It can only be said that the wizarding world ruled by the Supreme Witch King is incredibly vast and powerful. It's not just Zhu Peng who's making progress. Jiang Yusen also advanced to level 2 after killing the ice flame spider, but because his self-training wasn't sufficient, he only received 2 attribute points. In the past half-month, he's continuously participated in frontline battles and advanced another level, receiving 4 attribute points this time overall. This is already a pretty good set of comprehensive data, especially since he's recently neared the edge of another advancement. Brother Peng, if you don't want to major in Dark Battle Q, I don't mind. I heard from seniors on the forum that thieves can also cultivate Battle Q martial arts, and cultivating Battle Q martial arts is very helpful in improving practical attribute application. If you have time, please teach me. Some brazenness bordered on shameless, yet Zhang Yusen simply brushed it aside, ignoring it. Compared to power, face meant nothing. The weak didn't need dignity. The amplification of the Witchnet's attribute power simply boosted the strength. How much it could actually be utilized still depended on the practitioner themselves. The discrepancy between the apparent data and the actual attribute in use became increasingly significant as the practitioner's level rose. 100 points of strength in a warrior and a thief grappling. In terms of pure strength, the warrior would completely crush the thief, even though their paper data was the same. However, the actual attribute, this hidden value, had a huge gap. Jiang Yusen wanted to learn Zhu Peng's wolf fighting spirit, as this beast-type fighting spirit seemed to follow a high agility, high attack path, which in Jiang Yusen's opinion, perfectly aligned with his growth trajectory. I'm not hiding it from you, Yusen. Do you know why a knife needs a sheath? Despite being the most was the first among the 5 to stand, Zhu Peng slowly performed a set of Tai Chi in the stone hall. His movements fluid and powerful, gradually gathering his energy to protect the blade. Because the key to wielding a knife lies not in killing, but in concealment. Don't mention old man Lu has spent his life practicing with blades, and he himself is the sheath. Similarly, the key to my wolf fighting spirit isn't in unleashing it, but in controlling it. It appears to be a high attack, high agility martial art, but it primarily focuses on willpower, with agility and strength as secondary attributes. To cultivate it, one must forget the knife after wielding it, able to both take and relinquish. If you cultivate it, I fear you could take but not relinquish, ultimately allowing bestial killing intent to overwhelm your mind, changing your nature. With a final, powerful Tai Chi strike that seemed to reverberate through the air, Zhu Peng exhaled deeply and finished his form. You have 2 paths. 1. You cultivate this wolf fighting spirit. Once you grasp it, your combat power will undoubtedly increase in a short time. However, choosing it means choosing life or death. If you can control the bestial killing intent, you will soar to great heights. If not, I will personally kill you. 2. Yusen, wait a while. Later I'll find you a wind or water type fighting spirit to cultivate. One focuses on attack and agility, the other on attack and illusion. Both are more suitable for you than the dark fighting spirit. Having said that, Zhu Peng ignored the deep in thought Zhang Yusen, turning to Dong Zhuyin. Train your body well, and thoroughly study the art of observation. It's a great learning process. If you perform well, we will prepare a sniper crossbow for you when we return to Abyss City. You will then act as the team's scout and sniper. Dongzh, lacking Zhang Yusen's complex thoughts, excitedly nodded. For a scavenger to join an adventurer's team with a powerful leader like Zhu Peng was like a dream come true. Even and Cole, needless to say, even harbored her own thoughts. After this adventure, Cole would return to the Abyssal City to break through to the rank of a formal wizard before his lifespan ended. Regardless of success or failure, he would definitely not participate in Zhu Peng's adventure team again. Failure and death need not be elaborated upon once Cole successfully advanced. As a formal wizard, he would have far too many powerful paths to choose from. The 5 dark realms, such a pot of meat, look crude and shabby even to a pampered wizard. Professionals, Professionals, what a fine-sounding term. In reality, they are nothing more than war dogs trained by the Supreme Archmage for conquering the heavens. If it weren't for the fact that the Warcraft Legion system, this, is incredibly voracious, all the inferior professions under the witch net would forever only be able to struggle for survival in the shadow of the eternal sky. Reaching Witch Tower. In the quiet stone chamber, Peng sat cross-legged on a stone coffin, immersed in deep meditation. Before him lay the weighty meditation book given to him by Kid, concentrating his now 29 points of mental strength. Peng began to assault the sea of consciousness in his forehead, where he would inscribe a strange, deep, bright white rune. Time passed, minute by minute. An hour later, Peng sat quietly in the center of the stone coffin. A dark, profound aura slowly began to appear on his face. This aura first gathered like crystals, occasionally rippling like water. As mental power continuously poured in, the dark energy spread, gradually covering Peng's face like a shadow mask. Simultaneously, on the weighty tome before the wizard apprentice, as if drawn by an invisible hand, a line of crimson character, twisting like perpetually dripping filthy blood, slowly appeared in the wizard's language shadow mask. In the deepest recesses of everyone's sea of consciousness, a hideous yet powerful monster lurks. Feel it, touch it, understand it, embrace it. Darkness. Within your heart, his entire body felt as if it were immersed in icy seawater, slowly spreading upwards. Peng rationally knew that he was meditating, sitting cross-legged on a stone coffin in an underground tomb, assaulting the mental strength bottleneck of a third-rank apprentice. He didn't want to simply rely on the witch net's assistance to break through. Not that he couldn't, but he wouldn't. If the easiest and simplest breakthrough was always achieved by relying on the witch net's assistance, then Peng's path as a wizard would truly only be able to rely on the freedom attribute points provided by the professional system. A single road to the very end. Chapter 027. Peng, she and it. Underground tomb. Atop an ancient coffin in a stone chamber, a young man sat with a black book before him. Whether a moment or a century passed, he only felt like a rotted corpse submerged in a dark, icy ancient well, his mouth and nose beginning to emanate the stench of his own decay. Surrounding me were seaweed plants like a woman's long hair. I was not alone. I could clearly sense the presence of a woman, or perhaps a being of my kind, beside me. She, or it, wanted me to stay, to forever accompany its lonely solitude. Looking up, I saw a distant, blurry light above. The surrounding hair caressed my skin, infinitely gentle. Peng's hazy, vacant gaze suddenly sharpened. He shot upward towards the light. Briefly immersing one's primary consciousness in deep meditation can greatly accelerate the development of spiritual power, especially during the transformation of spiritual power into magic. The deeper the immersion, the higher the percentage of conversion. But true submersion in the subconscious sea means certain death, eternal damnation. First, as the meditation technique required, Peng felt it, touched, understood it, embraced it. Then, sensing his willpower nearing its limit, he unhesitatingly kicked it away and frantically ascended. This was similar to the trials of heaven and man encountered in Taoist cultivation. Peng was acutely aware of the extreme danger of this process. Once truly immersed in the so-called transformation of heaven and man,